Hey there, welcome in. It's another edition of the Stingers Up Sacramento State Football Podcast. I'm Jason Ross. What a week ahead for the Sacramento State Hornets. The home finale in the regular season as they welcome in Idaho. We'll talk a little bit about that during today's podcast. Also, what is the status of the Hornets and their postseason outlook? They probably need to win both. We're going to check into that with our FCS expert, Sam Herder, is going to join us on the podcast today and get a chance to catch up with former Hornet coach, player, and the guy I get to work with on every Saturday when we do television, Darren Arbet, kind of get his perspective on the season and this matchup this week against Idaho. And remember, next week, the big showdown. We're going to have a big podcast for you in the final Causeway. Maybe ever, I doubt it, but still, we don't know when the next Causeway will be. There'll be a lot on the line when Sac State takes on UC Davis. So that's all next week, but this week we got to talk about Idaho. And first, we'll start out our conversation with kind of where the Hornets are. What are their chances of making the postseason? Here's my conversation with Sam Herder. All right, we continue here on the Stingers Up podcast. We are now joined by Sam Herder, one of the best out there as covering the FCS, the senior FCS analyst at Hero Sports, joining us back here on the Stingers Up podcast. Sam, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. It's I know you're busy all year long, but now we're getting down to the end, and a lot of people are consuming as much content. Does our team have a chance? Can we do it if this happens? Just kind of as a general thought, the Big Sky has had 3 to 5 teams over the years, and I know the last 2 weeks will be important in all of that, but if you're just kind of looking at it as a whole, the way the conference has been this year, do you have a rough idea of how many Big Sky teams might make it?
Yeah, I think most likely it'll be 3 or 4 teams. Right now, there still are 5 teams with their hopes still alive. You can you pretty much pencil in Montana and Montana State already because both are Montana's at 10 wins, 9 D1 wins. Montana State's at 8 wins. And so those teams are all probably in. But then you look at UC Davis, Sacramento State, and Northern Arizona. UC Davis with 7 wins, Sac State, Northern Arizona with 6 wins. If you get to 8 wins, you're probably feeling pretty good. If you get to 7 wins in a 12-game season, 7 D1 wins, that is, you have a chance at getting in, but your resume is going to be put up against a lot of other 7-win teams and 8-win teams. And so I think right now there are 5 teams with hope still alive. I mean, there are scenarios where all 5 of these teams could get in. That would involve Sac State probably winning out, and Northern Arizona would have to win out. In that scenario, UC Davis at 7 wins could potentially be the odd man out, the odd team out in that scenario. But there's a lot of different ways this can go, just depending on results.
Yeah, and we're going to get into kind of each team, but I was thinking, with one other at-large bid, automatic qualifier this year with the Ivy League, that leaves, 13? I think at-larges. So the Big Sky, Missouri Valley, like the power conferences that have done well, and I know there's other conferences out there. It just feels like that's getting a little bit tighter for everybody.
Yeah, it is. And with the Ivy League now accepting their auto bid, that's one less at-large bid to go around. And, so that's, it makes it a bit more competitive as well. But we kind of see some ebbs and flows as well. I think like the Valley last year, I think only got 4 teams in. This year, it looks like the Valley could get 6 teams in. You look at a conference like the OVC Big South. Last year, they had 3 teams that got in. This year, probably only 1 team. The CAA, usually like a 4-bid league, they might only get 3 bids this year. And so it kind of ebbs and flows as far as, one conference isn't having quite as good of a season, and that allows, the 3rd place Southland team, or for example, to get in. And, the Big Sky too. I mean, they're usually a 5-bid league. There are scenarios where maybe it's only a 3-bid league, this year, just kind of depending on what happens with these results and also what happens elsewhere.
Would you rank the Big Sky number 2 amongst conferences, or where would you put them?
I think number 2. In previous years, there was a pretty good argument for the Big Sky or the Valley at number 1. I think this year kind of seems like the Valley has a hold of that number 1 spot, just with their overall depth of teams. Now, you could probably argue that this year, the Big Sky probably has more contenders between Montana State. Meanwhile, in the Valley, they kind of just have NDSU and then a lot of other good a lot of other good teams, but not many other great teams. Whereas in past years, they had NDSU and South Dakota State. So, but right now, I think overall depth-wise, we would probably put the Valley number 1, Big Sky number 2. Who's number 3? I think maybe you can make the argument for the UAC as being that number 3 conference in the FCS.
All right, let's go team by team here on the Big Sky, the 5 candidates that we've mentioned. Montana, I agree. I don't, there's probably not a worst case scenario for them being out, but at 10-0, worst thing that happens, they get a stunner by Portland State and they lose the rivalry game, but 10-2, they're still a team. But what's best case scenario for the Grizz and maybe worst case scenario?
Yeah, best case scenario is winning out and getting the number 2 seed. It seems NDSU right now is 10-0. They have 6 ranked wins. They have 2 unranked opponents coming in, so you can pretty much pencil NDSU in as the number 1 seed, even if they somehow lost to St. Thomas next week. Like NDSU's resume overall would still probably be good enough for a number 1 seed. So everyone's kind of battling for that number 2 spots, which comes with home field advantage. The best case scenario for the Grizz, you go 2-0 down the stretch, you have a really good resume, you finish 12-0, you get the number 2 seed. Worst case scenario, Portland State usually puts a lot into this matchup when it comes to Montana, so they get a massive upset here. The Grizz lose at home to Montana State. That'd be the first time the away team would win since, I think, 2018 in this matchup. And so worst case scenario, the Grizz go 0-2 down the stretch here. They finish 10-2 overall. That would only be 9 D1 wins. They're probably still a top 8 seed in that scenario. Maybe not for sure. But worst case scenario, they get the number 8 seed. Then they get fed into NDSU in the quarterfinals, and all of a sudden their national title hopes kind of get dashed in the quarterfinals there. That would be absolute worst case scenario, in my opinion.
Yeah, but that best, if they're 2 and everything up to the championship has to go through Missoula, will be tough. All right, now Montana State can change that. They're obviously a great team as well. They're in good position, have a good showdown on Saturday night national TV against UC Davis. 6-0 in league, 8-2 overall. They end with Davis and Montana. Let's give us a best and worst for the Bobcats.
Yeah, this one is interesting because Montana State can be as high as the number 2 seed, or they can fall all the way to out of the top 16 seeds and would have to play a road game in the first round, depending on how these games go. The playoff committee has been high on the Cats all year. There are 2 in-season rankings. They've had the Cats number 2, 1 spot ahead of Montana, ahead of the Montana Grizzlies. Win out and you're the obvious number 2 seed right there with home field advantage. If you split these next 2 games, let's just say win this weekend, and then you lose, at Montana. A 9-3 team, 9-2 versus the FCS. You can make an argument that is still the number 3 seed, just because they would have more ranked wins and much tougher strength of schedule than a Lehigh or a Tarleton State. So you could still argue that maybe Montana State just slips 1 spot if they do suffer 1 more loss, or they could drop a couple more spots. Then worst case scenario is they lose both of these games, right? 2 top 10 opponents coming. Maybe they have a trap game against UC Davis here, then they lose on the road. They fall to 8-4 overall. I still think they're in the playoffs at that point, but I don't necessarily think they would get a top 16 seed just with 4 losses, 1 ranked win over Northern Arizona. I don't know if that's necessarily good enough for a top 16 seed, so they'd probably have to go on the road in that scenario in the first round.
Yeah, pretty wild spectrum of where they could, do best and worst. All right, let's next go to UC Davis. And the mystery with Davis, too, Sam, is that first game. I think everybody watched it. It technically didn't count with Mercer, and you could make the argument they were ahead. Mercer was driving with the ball. I have no idea how that game ends, but I guess we have to wipe it from our memory. So that puts them at 7-2 and 5-1 in league, and they end, as we said, with Montana State on the road and then hosting Sacramento State. 5-1 in Big Sky. What's the Aggies' best and worst?
Yeah, that week 0 game was interesting because even while the game was still happening, even while Mercer was mounting the comeback, in my gut, I was kind of UC Davis, they're going to find a way to win this game. But then when the game gets canceled or considered a no contest, the next day you go, well, all the momentum was on Mercer's side, and they think they could have won that game, and maybe they would have. And it's a big cancellation for both teams because that's 1 less D1 win for whichever side would have won that game. Mercer is in the conversation for a top 8 seed, and so it is unfortunate we didn't get to finish that game just because that would have been a big win on either side's playoff resume. For UC Davis, they're in an interesting spot because they but they're at 7 wins right now, 7 D1 wins. they have two tough games to come here. And if they're going to be underdogs going to Montana State. And if Davis loses that game, all of a sudden the pressure mounts to beat their rival in Sac State. And if you lose that game, all of a sudden you're 7-4. You have one good win, one ranked win over Northern Arizona. Is that good enough to get you into the playoffs? Possibly, because the playoff committee has been pretty high on UC Davis. They've had Davis in their top 10. To go from top 10 to all the way out because you lost to two good teams, maybe that's too tough of a break for Davis. But worst case scenario is they lose these two games, and the playoff committee just says, like, sorry, there's just no room for you at 7-4. Best case scenario is you win these next two games, and all of a sudden you're looking at a 9-2 team, 9-1 versus the FCS, with a huge ranked win over Montana State. We'll see if Sacramento State is ranked next week at this time if they do get a win. But even if Sac State isn't ranked, that's still a quality win, and you're looking at Davis as a top 5 seed at 9-1. Now that Idaho State loss, it's a really ugly one. That kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. But if Davis can kind of recover and go 2-0 down the stretch here, and all we're talking about them is a really high seed.
Yeah, again, another team that's varying. I don't know exactly how this would go, Sam, but if Davis beats Montana State beats Montana, you got three teams that and Davis beats Sacramento State. You'd have three teams with one league loss. Someone's got to get the qualifier. They kind of, beat each other here. So it would be interesting. But that's the spot where Davis ultimately could end up.
They're with the I don't know what the auto bid scenario would be in that one. It'd be pretty tricky to figure out.
Rock, paper, scissors or something. All right, let's get to NAU, Northern Arizona. This team 6-4, 3-3 in Big Sky. I think that's important because that third loss in conference, we'll see where that ultimately puts them. They finish with a favorable schedule. Doesn't mean anything is a given with Cal Poly and Weber State. What about the Lumberjacks? What's their best and worst case scenario we're talking here?
Yeah, they kind of have. Upsets. Worst case scenario for them is they lose one of these last two games, then they win the other one. They finish, 7 wins in that scenario. I don't know if that would be enough to get into the playoff bracket. And frankly, best case scenario is you go 2-0, and you finish 8-4 overall, 8-3 versus the FCS. Like, that's obviously best case scenario as far as win losses in these next 2 weeks. But an 8-4 Northern Arizona team doesn't have any ranked wins. I don't think they're a lock to make the playoffs because they might lack, those quality wins. Now, they beat Southern Utah, and there's a chance that Southern Utah could finish with 7 wins and at least be in the playoff discussion. And so that would, while it wouldn't be a ranked win, it would at least be a win over a team in the playoff discussion. The Lumberjacks did beat EYW, who was ranked at the time. They're no longer ranked, and they haven't really been playing all that well for most of this season, but UIW's kind of turning around, and they're playing decent, so that could be another quote-unquote quality win. So I think NAU has the most favorable remaining schedule out of all of these teams to hit 8-4, but I don't think you can lock Northern Arizona into the playoff bracket at 8-4. I think they have an above 50-50 chance to make it into the bracket with 8 wins. Just, they're a Big Sky member, and I think that goes a long ways. We saw them get in last year despite not necessarily having the best resume. So chances are probably more likely than not that they would make it in to the playoff bracket at 8-4. I just think that the playoff committee could potentially knock them for not having any ranked wins on their resume.
Yeah, and that number 8-4 is big for Hornet fans as we go to Sacramento State because 6-4, they're definitely playing better. 4-2 in league, which I think is important. If they were to win out and beat Idaho and beat UC Davis, that gets them to that 8 mark and would put them at worst 3rd in the Big Sky. So I think watching NIU is going to be important too because they both end with 8-4. But let's talk about the Hornets. Maybe a team overranked early on. Now I feel like maybe they're not getting enough attention, but that's okay. That's probably a bias on my part. What do you think about their best and worst case scenarios here?
Yeah, I think with Sac State, they've beaten the opponents they're supposed to beat, but you're still kind of waiting on them to get that win over in a game that's maybe 50-50 or maybe they're a bit of an underdog in. And I think beating Idaho, who, is not the Idaho we thought they would be in the preseason, but they still have Joshua Wood back. They're still, it's a semi-quality win. I guess it's not going to be a ranked win, but you would still consider that like a pretty good win for Sacramento State. So you win there and you're sitting, somewhat confidently at 7 wins. and then you go to UC Davis. And if you win there, I think Sac State is for sure in the playoff bracket at that point. Sac State would be, 8-4 overall, 8-3 versus the FCS. That one win that you kind of hang your hat on and say, this is why we deserve to be in the playoffs would obviously be beating UC Davis. And even if Davis loses this week to Montana State, they're still going to be somewhere in the top 25. And so that would be a ranked win for Sacramento State. And at 8 wins, coming off of that ranked win over UC Davis, I definitely think Sac State is in the playoffs at that point. Worst case scenario, obviously you lose these next 2 games. You're definitely not in the playoffs at that point. I do think a 7-win Sacramento State team, it depends who that 7th win comes against. If Sac State beats Idaho, but then loses to UC Davis, I don't know if a 7-win Sac State team is in because they just won't have any wins that's like they could wave at and say like this win puts us above these other 7-win teams on the bubble. Now, if they lose to Idaho, which I don't think is going to happen, but let's say they do, bad game, they lose to Idaho, but then they come back and beat UC Davis, that's a different looking 7-win team than, the other way around. I think in that scenario, you're probably looking at, a 7-win Sac State team that has a better opportunity to get into the playoff bracket because they beat Davis rather than losing to Davis. And so that would be an interesting scenario. But in a sense, Sac State controls its own destiny because you go 2-0. It'd be really hard to keep the Hornets out at 8-4 if they go 2-0 down the stretch here.
Yeah, that's interesting. Sam, honestly, I thought they had to go, especially after they lost to Montana. They had 4 to go. I thought, well, they got to go 4-0. I didn't think about that scenario of possibly losing to Idaho and beating Davis based on what you're saying, the quality of win. I just don't know if they would be, if they lost Saturday, let's say at home in the home finale, if they're almost just kind of pushed aside, like, they're out, and getting the quality win against Davis, would it be enough to get him back in? I think that would have to rely on the respect for the Big Sky, but that's interesting. I didn't really think about that as a possible scenario.
Yeah, I mean, there would be probably you'd probably need a lot of bubble help as well. Some bubble teams also dropping. It kind of weakens the bubble a little bit. But yeah, anytime, like usually 8 wins in a 12-game season is the magic number to hit. But if you hit 7 wins and you're in a power conference like the Big Sky in the Valley, plus you have a ranked win, that kind of jumps off the page. That's why I think in this scenario, a 7-win Sac State team with a loss this week and then a win next week would have a chance. There's also the scenario that we've seen in the past where I can't remember, it was a couple of years ago where I think UC Davis beat Sac State. Yeah. Sac State still got in, even though they had the same record, and so maybe could be some goofy things happening on the bubble that way. But if you're Sac State, I think you just have the mindset of let's win this week, and put ourselves in position, and then it's potentially winning in when you go to UC Davis.
All right, so we laid out the 5 teams. Basically, looking at this from Sacramento State's perspective, I think their best chance, as you said, is to win both. So if we're under that assumption, if they get to 8-4, again, I'm assuming all these things, I believe that NAU will win both. Can't give them any games, but let's get them to 8-4. If Sac State wins both, that means they beat UC Davis. They are underdogs against Montana State. So if they were to lose, so if you've got a 7-4 Davis team, that would end up being 5-3 in league. NAU at 8-4, but they're 5-3. The Hornets are 8-4, but they would be 6-2 in league. How does the committee look at those 3 teams based on Davis beating NAU, Sacramento State beating Davis? Sacramento State and NAU never played. That to me is a tough one for the committee to go, yeah, we got 2 in already. We probably want a 3rd, maybe a 4th. How do you think they separate that if that's the scenario?
Yeah, in this scenario, Sac State has 8 wins in this scenario. Yeah, so I think Sac State, you would have to put them as that 3rd team in. And then the 4th team is, they could put all 5 in, in this scenario, if the bubble is light enough to put all 5 teams in. But if they, there's only room for 1, and NAU has 1 more win than UC Davis, but Davis has the head-to-head. Yeah, I think they would lean Davis there, just because, I mean, they, like I said previously, they've been high on Davis all year. Even in the ranking last week, they still had Davis, I think, number 10, and that was after Davis lost to Idaho State, and so they were still pretty high on Davis at that point. So I think in this scenario, if they went with 4 in Montana schools, Sac State, then I think they would lean Davis before they put Northern Arizona in.
Yeah. Well, again, the games will play out. Well, it'll decide itself, that's for sure, as we try to speculate on that. I'd ask for more speculation on your part because I know you're always following all the programs. We know that Sacramento State has desires to go FBS. I don't know. What are you hearing? What's the latest? What are their chances? I know there's so much moving around at every level, but what are you hearing? What do you think?
Yeah, well, I just saw recently John Canzano reported that maybe the MAC is in play when it comes to Sacramento State. That'd be a football only invite, obviously, with Sacramento State. Finding a new home for its Olympic sports. That one kind of surprised me a little bit. I mean, on the Sacramento State side of things, I think it makes sense to a certain part, just because you want to find your way into the FBS however possible. I'm guessing if this scenario came true, that probably isn't the ideal long-term situation for Sacramento State. Like you go to the MAC for football only, you have success, and then you parlay that into a Mountain West invite in 2030 when, all hell breaks loose. So, once again, in realignment, who knows? On the MAC side of things, I don't, and this was just like one report from John Canzano. Maybe you just heard that from the grapevine. I don't know, how much truth there is in that. From the MAC perspective, I don't know necessarily why this would make sense for the MAC, because they've kind of prided themselves on having that, tight footprints. Now, if it's football only for Sac State, which it would be, like that's just, 4 trips, out west, every year. So like it's manageable, but it's just kind of one of those ones that came out of nowhere to me where I don't know why the MAC would want to do this, but it's a potential landing spot for Sacramento State in the future. Whether it's next year or 27, I don't know. It just seems like the Mountain West isn't going to happen for the time being. The Pac-12 kind of has that mindset of like, oh, we're not going to add any FCS teams. We're the Pac-12. Like, they're kind of looking down their nose at any FCS additions. And so I think if that could be a landing spot for Sac State for football, I think it makes sense for the time being. Whether it happens, I really don't know. It could just be a little bit of rumor mill out there. I think maybe the most likely scenario for 2026 is Sac State is still considered an FCS program, but they're playing kind of a mix of, a handful of FBS opponents, a handful of FCS opponents. How that all shakes out. Like technically Sac State could still play in the playoffs if they won enough games, but if they played 6 FBS opponents and they lost to 4 of them, like that, it's a tough spot to get yourself into the playoffs. So it'll be interesting to see how it unfolds. I've said a lot that, I think Sac State's push to go to the FBS makes sense. Like put yourself out there and go for it. Whether they find a landing spot or not, it's really hard to know right now. It seems like that door has kind of been shut, just with no conferences seeming to be interested. Also, the waiver to go independent, that's been shut down as well. So it seems like that pathway to the FBS is kind of blocked right now. But like if what John Canzano reported is true and the MAC has some interest, that could be the one pathway that Sac State can get into the FBS.
Yeah, and again, if someone else moved out of there, does that open someone jump to that? It just. Man, it's constant movement. It's wild, but this is the best time of year. I know you're following all these games, and everybody that follows FCS loves to follow you. You do amazing work. I love your insight, and I'm sure hoping a couple of wins for the Hornets. I'd love to see them in the postseason. But Sam, we appreciate you sharing your knowledge, and keep up the good work.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
All right, the Stingers Up Sacramento State Football Podcast continues, and it's a pleasure for me, a guy I get to work with all the time on the television side, gotten to know over the years, Darren Arbet. He's a Hornet through and through, joining us on the podcast. Darren, how are you?
I'm doing great, Jason. How are you?
I'm well. I'm anxious for the game this weekend that I know we'll talk about, that we get the privilege of working. But I want to get people to know a little bit more about your journey, and because when I say Hornet through and through, you've been everywhere. Football's been your life, but there's something about Sacramento State that keeps bringing you back. What is it? What is it about the Hornets that you've either followed, coached, played for, stayed connected, working with the team now? Like, what is it about the school?
I've done, I think, everything you can do at Sac State. I played there, I coached there. I'm doing TV now, and I just love Sac State. It's near and dear to my heart. Always going to be a Hornet. Love the Hornets, and I'm really excited about this game this weekend.
Yeah, it's fun for me to watch you. I mean, do you enjoy the role, like with your success as a coach and winning championships in the Arena League,
coaches in the past and even currently kind of still reach out to you and I don't know, bend your ear, ask for some advice. What's that like to kind of be a mentor to current coaches, maybe even similar age to coaches that are far younger?
I told my wife, I'm in 6 Hall of Fame. She said, that's great. I go, no, that just means I'm really, really old. And the same thing about all the knowledge. I've been at Sac State since 1980. So it's like when you brought up the Cal Poly game in 1980, I was actually on that football team. So yeah. I just been around a long time, a lot of wisdom. I can tell these young men because I made the mistakes, and so they don't make the mistakes, what I would have done different and those type of things.
Is coaching today the same as the 80s, 90s, 2000, or adapting? Like what's different today for coaches?
You have more access. We didn't have access to Notre Dame film back then, or unless you knew someone who could get you that, because then they had to mail it to you. There wasn't anything online. You couldn't Google if a job was open. You had to hear about it. So great opportunity for these young men, the way it's supposed to be. They're supposed to have a better opportunity than we did in coaching.
Yeah. And then just for you as an alum, that's someone that played for Sacramento State, like you said, coached, you did radio sidelines with us, you've done TV. Can you, as someone that attended Sacramento State and played there, now kind of just imagine where they are and where they want to go? Hopefully FBS someday with a new stadium. I mean, it's already changed over the years. Can you even picture this from way back in the 80s to what they are now?
Wow. Yeah, when I first got to Sac State, Coach Maddles, love him. He was like a father to me. And Coach Plumtree, he and I still call each other, and we talk every day. Love that man. But yeah, we had a stick in the ground, and Coach Maddles said, hey, we're going to have a stadium. We're going to go D1. It's going to be a nice locker room. Our weight room wasn't very good. Our locker room, but wherever your feet are, that's the show. And we treated it as such. And now just the way the facility is, the field, the seating, we didn't have that seating. I mean, it was probably 6,000 that was the capacity back then. It's changed big time, and I'm happy for Sac State. And just coming back, I'm so proud to come back and say I played there.
Yeah. I mean, they moved into the Big Sky years ago. This is their final year in this great conference. It's super competitive, and it was fun to see in the Troy Taylor run to win 3 straight Big Sky championships, which is unheard of. And with aspirations, Darren, maybe of going FBS if they get there. How do you think that looks for this program if they can land their dreams of going to the FBS?
I think Dr. Wood is very aggressive, and if anyone can do it, he can. Coach Berrien, very impressed with him. He's a great football coach, great offensive coordinator, just a leader of men, a great recruiter. I can go on and just say 1,000 things about him. And being there firsthand, like you are, and just seeing it work, I think that was a great hire, and I think the sky's the limit for him.
How critical, because I would say so far in 1 year, his recruiting that's top notch. How critical is that to his success, but really college football success in recruiting?
It's tough these days. You have to be able to go out there and get young men to come wherever you are. And I mean, what are we, 5, 6 deep at running back? Receiving core is unbelievable. Offensive line, those running backs, they're having 50 and 60-yard jaunts, and it's just great to see what he's put together, and the coaching staff. He has some great coaches. The defense, I want to say they lead the league in sacks and tackles for losses, TFLs, and all around. And he did this within months. He got it done.
Yeah, I know that was something I think we talked about maybe in our first television broadcast this year, Darren, was, hey, look, it's unprecedented. It's new college football. You're going to get turnover and new players, but over 70. And I remember asking you, like, when does it click? And it just kind of happens over time. Do you feel like it's kind of happened now that they've got the games and practices under their belt?
Yeah, and that was the thing. You put 71 guys together and try to get them to grow as one within 3 or 4 months, that's tough task. It really is. But I mean, he did a great job just speeding it up and getting it done and winning games. And not only winning games, Jason, but I mean, he's beating people by 30 points, 25, 30 points. And just that running game, what I like is 4th and 6, and he's going to hand the ball off and get 20. So just the confidence that he has in his players and they have in themselves and the running backs. I mean, you can put, like I said, 5 or 6 guys in, and we would have a lot of success.
Yeah, what is it about this running game? Because I know if you were an opposing coach, you're coaching Eastern Washington and you got the Hornets on your schedule, you'd see that game film and you go, okay, this team's getting 200-300 yards a game. We got to do what we can to stop the run. I'm sure that's every team's game plan. Sometimes successful, but most times the Hornets are more successful. What is it about this run game, Darren, that works so effectively?
Coach Merch, the offensive coordinator, I get to have breakfast with him every Friday when there's a home game. I mean, just the confidence that young man has and the knowledge that he has in the game. And you're right. They stack the box. I mean, it's no secret they're going to run the football. And they stack the box and they still gash them. That's coaching those young men. Okay, when he's here, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. He's going to stack, you're going to take here, we might go down. Just a lot of different things they can do, and they do a tremendous job coaching it up and getting these young men to get the job done.
How about now, just if we take a season look where they are, there's 2 weeks to go. When they stubbed their toe early on, it was like, well, I don't know how it's going to look for these guys, but they have now put themselves back in a position to make the committee eventually think about the Hornets if they can win on Saturday and if they can win in the Causeway. They've kind of recovered their season. What do you think how they got here and just kind of the outlook in the final couple of weeks for the Hornets?
Let's go back. You're right. One of the losses was a tough loss, but the thing that Coach Marion did, he never had any doubt that he had a good football team. And he let those young men know. And he knew that they had to work a little harder and just do what we do and cut out some things that wasn't positive and make more positive plays. And I thought the next week they came out and they got it done. I want to say one game they threw it 3 times and almost broke the rushing record running the football. Just said, hey, I'm going to run the football and they're not going to stop us. And we're going to get that in our head. And I just have to take my hat off to him, just the confidence. And that's why people are leaders, because they can get stuff like that done.
I want to ask you about Idaho this week. We'll be on the call this weekend. This is a team that started in the top 10, has a really tough schedule, had some injuries, and now they've experienced some losses, unfortunately for them. But Darren, I look at them and go, I think on any given Saturday, that team can beat anybody in the Big Sky. This is going to be a tough one on Saturday.
Joshua Wood, he can play now, the quarterback for Idaho. I really like him. And Graves, the receiver, Michael Graves from the Sacramento area, number 1, he can go get it done. And then Cummings in the backfield, he's had some really good plays, some really good runs, great balance, great vision. You're right. I'm excited about this football game.
And if that goes well for the Hornets, it sets up the final week. The team you like to refer to as the team across the Causeway. Yep. It's also, Darren, I don't think it'll be the last one, but there isn't one scheduled going forward. And you played in this rivalry. It's awesome for the region. And I don't know. I guess I'll ask you, what does the Causeway mean to you? Is that a loaded question?
Yeah. Wow. It's from an early age, I was taught not to like that team on the other side of the Causeway. And we were excited to play that game. And then I got an opportunity to coach against them and with Greg Knapp on our staff and me and Clancy Barone. And we had success against that team. And, Yeah, I won't say that team's name, but I'm a Hornet. I bleed green, and but it's going to be a good football game. They have a good football team. I thought that young quarterback has developed every week. He's gotten better. They have some receivers that I really like. They can get down the field. They get open. They catch the football. They're playing well, and they have to win some big games now. They have a big one this week now.
Mm-hmm.
But Montana State, right?
Yeah.
So that's going to be a big one for them, and then they got to come back and face us. So, but I've seen them go against. I thought that Mercer game they played early on that didn't count. They were dominating that game early.
Yeah.
And Mercer start coming back, and then we know what happened, and that game was canceled, and it didn't count. But they're a good football team.
Yeah, I love it for this area too. How both schools really the football's been elevated, and so Davis has been a playoff team. The Hornets have been a playoff team, and there's a chance, Darren, that there could be a lot on the line in that Saturday.
I think you're right. And we were talking about it earlier this week. I think there's going to be a lot on the line. It's no other way I think Coach Marion would want it is to, everything on the line. And Davis is coach. I really like him. He's done a tremendous job since he took over there. And, but we got to get past this one first. See,
yep.
You media guys, I'm not a media guy. I just do it. Media guys.
See, I even got you to say, you said Davis is coach. You said the school.
No, I said their coach. I didn't. I said
I'm going to go back to the tape.
Throw the flag, right? In the commercial,
yes.
Right?
Yes. Well, Darren, I know it's absolutely been a pleasure for me to work with you, get to know you over the years. I know you're a true all the way through a Hornet. Let's also catch everybody up too. You're continuing to coach. Your team last year in the Arena League did great. You've got championships there. What's kind of your future after this season? A football season wraps up for the Hornets as far as your Arena League.
Well, I'm back to Nashville. Work for Jeff Fisher and John Gruden. They own the football team, the Nashville Cats, and just a great opportunity for me. And, at my age, someone still thinks you can coach their team and give them an opportunity to win a championship. And we did have our chance. We lost in the championship game by 3 at the end, but just a great opportunity for me I don't know if I needed more than they need me. And I think that's the truth because it just woke me back up, and I'm excited to wake up and recruit every day. So definitely be back there.
Yeah, what's cool is you're always keeping your eye too on the Hornets and who they're playing. Like there's Big Sky talent you get and Hornets, and it's you're always keeping your eye open, aren't you?
Absolutely, I am. We have a few guys that can really play. Hopefully they're playing on Sundays. But if not, I would definitely give them a phone call.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Darren, I know Saturday is going to be awesome. I look forward to seeing you then, working with you then, and thanks for joining us.
Oh, no, thank you. I appreciate this tonight.